Yo, what up, Blackish fam? It's your boy B. Man, so many cats have told me you got to check out this Aesop, and I'm like, Aesop? Are you talking about Aesop Rocky? They're like, nah, man, Aesop Rock. I'm like, who? I have no clue who this cat is. But a few people have hit me up, and man, over the last few days, it's been school got closed because I live in the Midwest, just outside of Chicago. We got a big snowstorm, so man, schools were shut down. I had my 5-year old and had to delay. I thought I'd get to a lot more videos, but we're back at it. It's the weekend, and I pulled up. I don't necessarily know what to pull up for Aesop Rock. Now, the first thing that pulled up was something called Mystery Fish. No clue what this is, so I definitely wanted to pull up a lyric video. I have no idea what to expect, but a lot of people have said to check them out, so it must be decent, right? It looks kind of Grateful Dead-like, or very, like I would almost expect rock and roll or something. Like there's a grunge look to it, if you would. Okay, I heard a little. Where's my thinking cap? Alright, it's a little different.
Army in a cave when I fail better terraforming. Four corners of paranormal, get short for thermos and parathermals in the warehouse.
Kind of reminds me of like gorillas or something like doom, 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 doom. I'm happy, feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long. The future is coming on, it's coming on, it's coming on, right? What do you say, tech support? Getting down on the guitar, listen.
Tech support, family army in a cave when I fail better terraforming. Four corners of paranormal, get short.
Well, he said quite a bit there. Tech support, I think a lot of people know what IT tech support is, but he said feral army. I mean, when you think of feral, you'd probably think of like a feral cat, right? But you normally think of some sort of animal and like this wild state. But feral it normally means it's after escaping from like captivity or domestication, right? Like a domesticated cat. Now, but a feral animal, or it could be a plant, is one that lives in the wild, but it actually descends from a domesticated version of that. But feral animals or plants, they can disrupt ecosystems, right? Now, you can actually cause other species to become extinct, right? The more indigenous species. But that's what feral is. You might think of a feral cat is probably a good way. It's a wild state. It's like you escaped in captivity. So to say a feral army, that's just a weird way of putting something. Now he said in a cave on a failed bit of terraforming. Now I come from an IT background. Now Terraform, you might think of AWS, right? Like Terraform from a tech perspective, it's a tool that's used. It's used to manage the life cycle of infrastructure. It's using infrastructure as code. But terraforming, you can also think of terraform from like a geological perspective, and I think that's what he's getting to when he says in a cave on a failed bit of terraforming. But it could be the IT perspective because he also said tech support, right? It's kind of difficult, and it's not. It's very different language, right? But terraforming, that's like it literally means earth shaping. It's like modifying the atmosphere, the temperature, modifying the ecology, right? You're trying to make an environment that's Earth-like, right? It's a habitable environment. That we would say that's terraforming. So it just definitely has a double meaning there.
Tech support, barrel army in a cave when I fail Terraforming, four corners of paranormal, get shorn for a thermos and
Four corners of paranormal. I've heard that before. Where if you search, if you know paranormal activities, things like that, I believe he's talking about New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, and Arizona. But I'm not as familiar. Let me know in the comment section if you're interpreting that differently. I'm not sure where he's from in the world, but it's an odd way of structuring what I've seen thus far. Let's get to it.
Four corners of paranormal, get shorn for a thermos and parathermals in a warehouse air. Where's Barry Curdle, St. Vincent de Paul trying to square the circle.
Trying to square the circle. You don't hear that a lot. He said St. Vincent de Paul. What he's referring to is there's a challenge of it's constructing a square with the same area as a given circle using a finite number of steps, right? I don't think you can do that. It's impossible, right? Because you have to think of pi. There's no end with pi, 3.14711, right? And it just keeps going on and on. So I believe that's what he's referring to. But normally when you hear the expression squaring the circle, it's used as a metaphor when someone's trying to describe something that's like impossible.
Colonel St. Vincent de Paul trying to square the circle. Circle the source of the power. Foresight born at the corner of Howard on sale. Cherry pick Bill in the pail. It's a blue nose chew in a steel. Losing his coat. Schmoozing a high in a head rush. Hack up bile over each. One and one and then some. One eye on the breadcrumbs. Other eye on the drink crumb. Other eye on the income. Good knife in the grin. Shoot dice with the lice and the ringworms. Peg leg.
So he's talking about doing dirt, right? He's in areas that he shouldn't be. Now I don't know if he starts talking about something being feral, right, in this wild state. He said in a cave on a failed bed of terraforming. Now, what does that mean, right? You're talking about literally reshaping the earth, but a failed bed. He's in the wild, right? So what is he getting at? Right? Is he in New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, or Arizona? He said shorn. The only time I've ever heard shorn is when you're talking about like cutting the wool off a sheep, right? He said a warehouse air where his dairy curdles. Why does dairy curdle? If your milk curdles, it's old, right? So it sounds like he's out in the wild, right? Is in warehouse air where his dairy curdles. He's talking about a pair of thermals and a pair of thermals. And he's talking about being in the wild, like a feral cat, but a feral army, in a cave on a failed bed of terraforming. Terraforming. Okay, I'm going to have to run it back.
From other eye on the income. Good knife in the grin. Shoot that. Cup bile over each. One and then some. One eye on the breadcrumbs. Other eye on the drink crumb. Other eye on the income. Good knife in the grin. Shoot dice with the lice in the ring.
Shoot dice with the lice and the ringworm. If you have lice, you're dirty, right? Not dirty, but you could have gotten lice from somebody else that has long hair. The bugs, the viejos or nicks, right? They travel and they're all on your scalp when you have long hair and you have to clean your hair. It normally doesn't happen unless you're homeless or you're in a household with a lot of people. You're not the cleanest person when it comes to your hair. And ringworm is, you can do a test, but a ringworm is like a worm that gets into your body and it's under the surface of the skin. And normally leaves these circular marks on like your arms. You can have ringworm. So it sounds like he's living bad, right? He's talking about feral army, right? Being in a wild state. He said he's on a cave on a failed bed. He's talking about four corners of paranormal, but it could be four corners of a street. He's talking about a thermos and a pair of thermals. And he said he's in the warehouse air where dairy curdles. So it sounds like this dude is out here bogus, or he might be homeless, right? It sounds like he's living on the street. He said he's at the corner of Howard, right? He said a blue nose chewing his tail. What's a blue nose? That's a blue nose pit bull. Why would a blue nose pit bull be chewing his tail? He said losing his coat. right? So it sounds like he's struggling as a homeless person, or he's struggling on the streets. Maybe he's a crackhead or a drug addict. Um, I don't know a lot about this cat. I don't even know if he's black, white, where he comes from. But it sounds like he's had his share of struggles, or he's definitely referencing something. He says, "Hack up bile over H1N1." Wasn't that H1N1 wasn't that bird flu or something like that? He said, "The eye of breadcrumbs." See.
On the breadcrumb, other than a ride on the income. Good night in the grin, shoot dice with the lice and the ringworms. Hey leg, smells like Medellin, late in the night, make a pipe out of anything.
Yeah, so it sounds like he might be, what do you say? Peg leg, smells like Medellin, like Colombia. Make a pipe out of anything, right? So it sounds like he's trying to protect himself as he's in this feral state, right? He's in this wild state. He says a feral army. Maybe he's living amongst thieves, right? Or in a shelter of some sort. But he said, I'll make a pipe out of anything. It sounds like you make a knife out of anything in prison, right? To make a pipe, maybe he needs some sort of weapon. Run it back here.
Hey leg, smells like Medellin, late in the night, make a pipe out of anything. Take 5, take it out in the 7, turn 5 and about 6, 7, 8, back out.
Yeah, he's turning less into more, right? He said, and when he said, tell someone, take 5, right? You take 5 minutes, you're taking a break. But he said, take a dive in the cellophane. Is he dumpster diving, right? If you're diving, is it the cellophane, like the old foam and plastics that people throw in a recycle bin? Or is he looking for food, right? Like a dumpster dive. He said, turn 5 into 5, 6, 7, 8. Almost like if you're doing choreography, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? But he said take 5, but he said turn 5 into 5, 6, 7, 8. That could be taking something that's less and making it into something more. Let's run it back just a few seconds here.
Take 5, take it out in the 7, turn 5 and about 6, 7, 8, back out, black out, somewhere, fantasy shit, in the backseat of Aesop's Camry.
So maybe he's living in his car. He said back out, black out, somewhere fancy, shaped like the backseat of Aesop's Camry. So he's Aesop. Maybe he's living in his car.
Black out somewhere, fancy shit, in the backseat of Aesop's Camry, dude. Seat full of chips, sandwich, meat full of grip to the end. If you give it a dress and a rib or a piss, don't question a mystery fish. Just picture.
So seat full of chips and sandwich meat from the crypt, right? So he's living in his car. He's living on the streets. This guy is homeless. And he's talking about his interactions, right? Needing a pipe. I'm talking about feral army, right? He's amongst these homeless and thieves. They said in the end, if you give an address in a river of piss, right? A river of piss. So he's just in this bad situation, like a pile of shit or a river of piss. So if you give someone an address and it's on the river of piss, don't question the mystery fish, the name of the song. So now he obviously considers himself the mystery fish in this river of piss and pile of shit. So he's just a fish in this. He's like a needle in the haystack, but the haystack is a pile of shit and piss, and he's just a fish moving through it and homeless in this world, living in his car. Right? What did he say? Just picture shrimp on a pillow of grits. So he's thinking of food, right? He said, close your eyes and picture this, right? I'm at the cafe ordering a cup of fresh. Sarah gave me 2. I gave 1 to Rex. Does he live with his dog? Is he living in the car with his dog Rex, or is Rex one of his friends? And how does he know Sarah? I imagine Sarah's someone he knows at the cafe. He said he ordered a cup of fresh, I imagine coffee, and she gave him 2. You wouldn't give coffee to a dog. So I imagine maybe Rex is his boy. He said fools ain't shit. Ain't shit. Plus fuck the pigs, the cops. They can never understand what Sumner is. I don't know the reference to Sumner. Let me know in the comment section if I'm getting this right. This is a lot more complex than I would have thought. They could never understand what Sumner is. Let me know if you know what that means in the comment section.
Fools ain't shit, plus fuck the pigs. They can never understand what Sumner is. Grid, I'm moving gate. I fly these kites into the fray. I'm box, I'm through the hood. I fly these kites into the cut.
Yeah, he's talking about being homeless for sure. So he says, I'm off the grid. I'm through the gate. I fly these kites into the fray. I'm out the box. It could be thinking outside the box, or he could be living in a box. I'm through the mud. I fly these kites into the cut. That's just such an odd thing to say, but it definitely sounds like he's out on these streets struggling. I fly these kites into the cut. NorCal ride bacteria, no ID survived the vivarium. Try soft feel serotonin. Oh, see, now he's talking about addiction issues, right? He said NorCal fried bacteria. That's a weird way to put it. NorCal, I believe he's just talking about, instead of SoCal, Southern California, he's referring to North California. But he said No ID, which No ID is a producer, right? Has worked with Kanye West and some of the best. But No ID could just mean that you can't identify him, right? He's just a mystery fish, as he calls himself, right? You don't know who he is. He's just another bum, living in Cali. Maybe I know they have a big homeless problem. He should survive the vivarium. Now that's a little bit different. Now there's a film, right? There's a film that explores. It's a metaphor, but they talk about parasitism, right? Parasitism is a phenomena which, like birds will lay their eggs in a stranger's nest, and they trick the other bird into raising the young. It's weird to reference that, but he's talking about a parasite, but he's also talking about fried bacteria. So that's probably the reference, but I don't know how they connect. Let's listen. Yeah, he's talking about being in the streets, right? Might hold court with attack cats and dogs. But he said try soft field sourdough, like bread, and heroin. This boy's making crack sandwiches, right? Oh, Tyrone Biggums. Ooh, peanut butter and crack sandwich, right? But he said, eat with the chimera fly, with the seraphim. A chimera is it's an individual whose body is like you're composed of cells, right? And those cells are genetically distinct. They're from. It's basically saying that people's bodies, they have at least a few living cells that come from another person. And you could also tie that with parasites, which he also parasited. How did he say it? He said bacteria, right? Vivarium. But it just again, it's very odd. Most people wouldn't be referring to these things when they're talking about living on the street. Like a seraph, are you talking about a heavenly being? Like a seraph or seraphim? Aren't those the closest angels to God in heaven? I'm pretty sure it is. But let's try to hear it together. He's talking about a dragon orb. Did you hear that? He said, where is it? Who cools like an orb? Is he talking about the cigarettes, the cools? Dragon orb is the orb of dragon kind, right? It's like fragile crystal. It's an orb. I think most of you know what, but you're talking about like science fiction at this point. Curse of the Beat Cop, doctor a Slurpee. When you doctor a Slurpee, you're putting something in it. Like you're normally pouring liquor if you got a doctor at the high school dance, you're going to doctor up the fruit punch. You're pouring a little vodka in the punch, making a little jungle juice, right? But he said doctor. So it sounds like he's definitely has some substance abuse issues. Fierces, that is Hearseas. Is Hearseas the Great, right? I think that's who he's referring to. That's a Gregorian legend, right? The Fisher King is sometimes known as the Wounded King or the Maimed King. That it's the king, a long history of kings. It's the royal bloodline that supposedly guards the Holy Grail, right? Again, one would think fictional, but hearing X yelling, "Kiss the ring," like bow down, but from a fortune of Fisher King. Assistant care, blisters in his hair, right? Yeah, he's definitely talking about being homeless, right? He's talking about a new day diary of disrepair. New day, a new diary of disrepair. Soup's on, like he's like a soup kitchen. 2-ton crucifix to bear. No shoes, no shirt, no fiscal year. A fiscal year is in business. It's not the calendar year, but it's the fiscal year by quarters, Q1 through Q4. No shoes, no shirt, no service. If he's a bum, that's obviously something that's affecting him. Sun Tzu? Is he talking about the general, the army general, right? Isn't that Sun Tzu, right? Sun Tzu is a dude who never lost a battle, right? He never fought his enemy if it wasn't necessary, but supposedly he had all sorts of surprises for his enemies. But when you read stories about him, in his 40 years as a general, Sun Tzu never lost a battle, right? He never lost a military campaign. That's who Sun Tzu is. Turned the bum to a Sun Tzu bug, right? So he didn't lose a battle. He's obviously a bum, right? He's homeless. He's talking about what are you talking about? Crack, drinking bug juice, right? He's out here living bad. It's occultism. The occult, in its broadest sense, it's a category of supernatural beliefs, right? They're practices that fall outside of religion and science, but it's normally like mysticism, like he's talking about dragon orbs, right? Spirituality, magic, if you would. Again, just a funny way to put it all together. This is one of those songs that I think every time we listen to it, we're going to pull something else from it, but very difficult, extremely difficult to dissect. And I'm somebody who's, I do these reactions, I do intellectual breakdowns, and even though I understand a lot of the terminology he's using, it's just such an odd way to put together a song. I'd like to think he's talking about being homeless and living in his car, but the way that he put this together, he could be talking about a number of different things. It's very interesting. I'm curious to know if all of his songs are like this. Like kind of in a very backward sort of way where he's not really saying exactly what he means. It seems like he's trying to paint a picture, but the references I still don't understand about the bacteria and it's just difficult to decipher. But again, we keep pausing it, so it's really hard to hear the context. But I'll run it back and we'll definitely get into one or two of his other songs. So if you're a fan, don't forget to show love by liking the video, but subscribe to the channel. We do intellectual breakdowns of some of the most lyrically dense artists where it actually requires going bar by bar if you want to just hear this song, if you're like, oh, Mystery Fish is my jam, I want to hear it again, this ain't the channel for all that. We're not just vibing out like a regular YouTuber. Oh, he snapped with it. You don't have no clue what he snapped about. Let's be real. I love, man, some of these YouTubers, it's like, what are you doing with your platform, man? You're doing a reaction. I don't want to watch you just enjoy something. I want to hear what you think about it. Let's get the conversation going, right? Now, I want to hear the context of what he's saying and understand the hidden meaning behind those Easter eggs, right? With someone that's like this, it's so hard to just listen and just automatically understand what he's saying. Sometimes you got to bounce ideas off someone. And for an artist that's taken this much time to create the meaning and intellectually write, we can decipher something like this and actually give it the attention that it deserves. If you're a fan of intellectual breakdowns, you're in store for a treat. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Tone Loc, that's Anthony Terrell Smith, right? He's a rapper. He goes by the name of Tone Loc. This is yesteryear. But again, talk about him being a bum. He said outside home is an open swim, right? And he talks about the corrosive wind, cold mails, a whole host of meds, a deal on a Tone Loc cassette. It sounds like he's out here struggling and living in the streets. And he's painting a picture in a weird way, but he's painting a picture of what he's going through. I stepped over a body in the door. I pretend he's asleep, but it's probably more. He's either dead, beaten up, or he might be a fiend, a drug addict, right? Wow. And he said heart with a crack. Dude could be a crackhead, right? He said he's probably more. That's it. Wow. That, I would love to hear other people's reactions to this song because, I'd like to think that I can break down with some of the best. And this is just a very difficult song to understand what's really going on. Man, I'm going to get right into another Aesop rock song. Man, if you guys are fans of Aesop, please feel free to leave me a few comments about what songs I should check out, what to show me his versatility, because this was a little bit odd for me. Definitely not one of my favorites. I don't know if it's something I would listen to again because I didn't quite understand everything. But let's check out some of his other work. Even though I don't like it to listen to, I could still appreciate playing on words and the intelligence behind writing it, right? Now let's check out one of his other songs.